Hi, I'm Lucy from Study Work Grow, and welcome to this quick session where we're going to be talking about some ideas for embedding careers within the curriculum. So, we're going to be covering a few things. We're going to start off by talking about what actually is careers in the curriculum. What do we actually mean when we say careers in the curriculum, and how is it different to the normal work that we do? We're going to look at some important considerations for embedding careers within the curriculum, because it isn't necessarily something that you can just decide to do one day. We need to be thinking about this in depth and thinking about how that might impact on other parts of your program. And then we're going to look at a couple of ways you get started. And I'm going to use real life examples from schools that are already doing this with great effect, so you can see what that might look like in practice as well. Before we start though, one little caveat: this work, careers in the curriculum, is really over and above the work of what a normal career practitioner would be doing. We know that most career practitioners in schools are already trying to probably do too much with too little. You have a lot of other things that you're responsible for. And while embedding careers within the curriculum is really important and really best practice, at the same time recognizing that if some of the content that we're covering today is a bit beyond what you are able to manage within your school context or what you can get approval for, don't let that slow you down or stop you, because you can still do some of the easy things, the small wins to get started. And over time, what we find is that as schools get to build more of a whole school career mindset, they might open up to you being able to embed more careers within the curriculum. So what is careers within the curriculum? For me, it's really about linking learning with life. It's about taking the content that you cover or the teachers are covering in their classrooms and about making those connections between how that content will be applied or how it is already being used in the real world. That can be quite a tricky thing for students to do for themselves. They need somebody else to explain those connections for them. They probably don't have enough experience of the real world to be able to do that for themselves. And sometimes what we find is that teachers also don't have enough experience of the world of work to be able to make those connections for their students. But when it does happen, it can really help uplift the curriculum as well as broadening horizons and challenging stereotypes for young people. So there's a little bit of a difference between what I call careers in the curriculum and what we would call a typical careers in the curriculum. In a normal career curriculum, we'll be covering things like resume writing and interview skills, subject selection, work experience, goal setting, all of those kinds of things that are quite career education specific and that really couldn't be embedded within the curriculum. Like, you could stretch it and maybe put some of that in some different subjects, but there's a risk that if you're doing that and not really staying on top of it and doing it effectively, that you might actually miss some of the core skills that are just part of career curriculum and really should be probably taught separately to some extent. Careers in the curriculum, on the other hand, is how you can bring careers and bring real world into the classroom. And that may look like guest speakers. It could look like working on projects or some assessments that are based around projects. It could be learning about local people, local scientists, local historians, local people doing amazing things, or your teachers actually doing that work of explicitly connecting the content with the real world. So part of the point of careers in the curriculum is that it's really about self-determination. It's about motivation. When we look at self-determination theory, that looks at what components we need to get young people motivated. And we know that our students need these 3 psychological needs in order to be able to feel motivated towards their learning. They need to feel like they have a sense of control over what they're learning. And careers in the curriculum can help them build that, because they can start to make those connections for themselves and start to see how this is relevant to their lives. Careers in the curriculum also helps them understand their skills and then connect them with what the future might really look like for them. It's not all a theoretical construct or just a report card. They can start to really make those connections for themselves. And then finally, it can help teachers demonstrate that they really do care about the young people that they're working with and help them build that relationship, that sense of belonging within the classroom. But it's really important to recognize that teachers aren't actually careers experts. They're experts in whatever subject they have been trained in, and they already have a heck of a lot to do. So it may be that they don't have the time, the capacity, or even just the experience of the workplace to be able to make those connections for themselves. I often find when talking to teachers, a lot of them also don't necessarily feel confident in the knowledge. They might not feel that they're up to date with the local labour market, and they might not be able to make those connections with their actual content that they're teaching and the real world in a really explicit way for young people. So the second part of what we're going to be talking about is these important considerations, the things that we need to think about, the structure we need to work towards also working out who's responsible, those kinds of things that you're probably going to want to have considered before you actually start trying to build out or trying to implement some sort of careers in the curriculum program. So the first one of these is that the learning should always be age appropriate. So it's really easy when we talk about careers in the curriculum to just think, oh, okay, I need to talk about jobs, so I'm going to go and talk to primary school kids about different jobs. But we know that younger students don't necessarily need that kind of knowledge. They don't need to know about every single job that is out there or even necessarily have explored one or two jobs in detail. They can simply be using things like role play, dramatic play, reading books about different people at work, all of these things they're already doing in the classroom, but in a bit of a more deliberate way, which helps them explore a wider variety of roles and hopefully break down some of those stereotypes that we see quite early on. Later on, we can start to scaffold in those more complex concepts. We can talk about the local labour market. We can start to talk about some more of those invisible roles and help young people to think beyond just the most obvious roles in every industry, and things like the career clusters can help with this. And then by the time we're in years 11 and 12, what we start to see is that they may have an idea. So in year 10, they wanted to be an engineer, but in year 11 and 12, they're starting to think about the type of engineer and whether they want to be a hands-on engineer or whether they want to go into some sort of policy or project management. So they start to get more specific. So at that point, we really want to widen the range of jobs that we're talking about within the curriculum. Second important consideration is to bring industry along for the ride. This isn't something that we can really attempt to do in isolation. It's not a theoretical construct. And we know that particularly within a school context, many of your students are probably going to stay local. So it's really important that they know what's available to them, close to them. They know the kinds of jobs that are in your local area, the kinds of industries that are going to be offering really good chances of employment. So you are bringing industry in to provide that information to your young people. The industry that they're going to be going into have the most up-to-date and accurate information for your local area, not just on things like salary and kind of the qualifications they're looking for, but also the kinds of human skills they might be after, trends they can see within the future of work. And if you're working within your local industry and your local community to bring everything together for your students, that's when it gets really exciting with careers in the curriculum. The last thing, or the other thing to think about when you're setting up your program, is work out the roles. So it's really important to acknowledge that at the start that as a career practitioner, you're probably going to need to champion this project within your school. And that's going to be your role, is as the person that everyone else can come to when they have questions, when they need more information, when they want a bit more training, when they need some resources. You're really going to need to be that champion and that source of font of all knowledge, as we like to say, within your school environment to get careers in the curriculum off the ground. It doesn't mean you're going to have to do everything, because we also have teachers. And teachers are actually a really important influence over students. After parents, they're probably going to be the second most important influence. And that makes sense, right? Because they have great access to students. They're in the classroom with them every day. They usually have really good relationships with their students. But because they may not have any career education training, they might not actually realize how this influence works or even recognize how important their influence is. So teachers have a role to play and you have a role to play. It's not the same role. And teachers need to realize how important their role is and bring them along right from the start. The last thing with the important considerations is to think about how you can build a whole school career mindset. And at the end of the day, if you don't end up getting to a spot where you're sitting down in policy meetings, working through curriculum, making sure that everything is completely tied to the real world, that's quite advanced in terms of careers in the curriculum. But if all you're doing is working towards this whole school mindset where every teacher can have a positive career conversation with young people, if students know where to go when they have questions about their futures, if families can feel like they can ask and they can be also informed, then that kind of mindset is such a great way to support your career education program no matter what it looks like. There are a couple of things you can do with that. One of the most effective that I see is when you make careers visible within the school. Put up posters on every surface that you're allowed to, some that you're not allowed to as well. I've certainly done that when I've been working in education settings in the past. Use big events like National Careers Week. Let everyone get excited about it. Make sure that it's promoted. Make sure that you're getting leadership on board so that you can make a big fuss about careers during those weeks. And then if you can, try and hold your own careers expo or careers events or even just information sessions, just to make sure there's that kind of constant trickle of information going out and this constant reminder that careers is the thing that is valued within your school environment. So as I said, we're going to talk at the end of the session a little bit about what this could actually look like in practice. It is going to be different in every school and every setting and with every teacher. So don't expect that it's going to look the same in your school as it does in a school just down the road, or even that it's going to look the same within 2 departments or even within 2 classrooms in the same department. Because every teacher is different, every cohort of students is different. But there are some things that I see that work quite well that we're going to be talking about quite quickly. The first thing is, and this is quite advanced, but if you can, see if you can join in with planning meetings. It might be that you're already part or seen as part of a leadership team, in which case that's fantastic. If you can use that power to get your way into those curriculum development meetings, you don't need to have an agenda of your own. You can just be there as a sounding board or as an ideas person, someone who they can come to with questions about the real world or guest speakers or community connections or whatever it is, so that you can get involved in those meetings and support where you can. As an example, there's some great work that's been done in the UK with primary schools where, as part of a pilot program, the team of career practitioners actually went around to primary schools and sat down and said, let's do an audit. What are you already doing within your curriculum that's already got some sort of connection to the real world? What's already covered? What does it look like? And then how can we extend this? How can we make this even better? How can we support you to bring more people in? So if you can get into those meetings, and I'm not saying you can because not everybody can, but if you can, that can be a really positive place to start. The second way you can help is with actually supporting curriculum development. Now, this might come around because a department or a teacher has asked you to jump in on a project that they're working on. And that might be as simple as out of the whole year, they might have one project that's got a real world focus. So it might be that they're setting up a restaurant with hospitality students, or they're running some sort of environmental reporting program in science or English, for example, and they're wanting you to help connect them with local scientists. So whatever it is, if you can get your foot in the door and help with developing 1 or 2 little projects, or even with just being there to support as they're developing out the curriculum for the next year, that can be a great way in for you to start helping to embed some more careers within the curriculum. As an example, I've seen some schools who have run career education really successfully in secondary schools, and then primary school teachers in their primary school that were watching, observing what's happening, have reached out and said, hey, can you help us build out this unit that we're working on, this Who Could I Become module, make it even better and make it even more related to the real world. So in that instance, we've got a school who the teaching team have actually come to the career practitioner and asked for support. And that's what we would really like to see more of. Another way you can support is with providing actual learning resources. So teachers have access to a huge amount of resources, and that's really awesome. But they might not have access to as much in terms of the real world as what you could help them provide. So you probably already have your networks of your own. Most career practitioners are really great networkers. So provide access to those speakers and your industry connections to your teachers. Let them know that if they need someone to come in and help on a project, or they are looking for someone to help be part of a panel, or whatever it is that they're looking for, the teachers can come to you and you're going to be able to open up your book and hopefully find someone who can help them as well. You probably have access to wider ranges of people as well. You're probably more aware of things like when a tourism council, for example, have just announced they've got 20 new speakers who are willing to come out to schools. Your teachers might miss that, but you will pick that up. So think about how you can provide in that way. You're also probably going to be much more likely to be on top of information about the local labour market and emerging roles in your local area. So where you can provide resources that you come across, it might be as simple as you've attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting, you've picked up some information, listened to some interesting speakers, summarised that in an email and sent that out to all of your teachers just to make sure that they're in the loop, they know what's going on in your local area. You can also provide attention-grabbing resources. I know we mentioned the posters a minute ago. I've had schools where they have put up the career education posters that were sort of related to subject areas, and then over time they disappeared as teachers took them inside their classrooms and put them up for themselves. I think that's absolutely fantastic. So if you can, send posters off to your teachers. Make sure they've got different booklets. If you've got a STEM magazine, for example, make sure your science teachers have access to copies of those as well to actually put in the classrooms. Get them engaged with those kinds of resources. And then the last thing that you can really provide for teachers is this real world data. So real world reports, real world data sets, things that are related and are actually being used in the real adult world of work. Provide them to your teachers and just break down those barriers and stops them having to search for them themselves. So I've got some examples here. If we're talking about English teachers, it could be as simple as finding some really cool local jobs that are opening up, printing out or PDFing the job descriptions and making sure that your English teachers have those so they can use them for analysis. You could provide technical manuals or legal documents that you come across when you're doing maybe tours of different work sites and different work environments. All those kinds of things are real world examples of documents that it might be hard for an English teacher to source, but could be really valuable in terms of just making that content that they're going over in English relatable for the real world. Same with industry reports. Send them over to your English teachers as well. Maths teachers might want to see your data sets. So there are some absolutely fantastic labour market data sets available around the world. For example, in Australia, we've got Jobs and Skills Australia. They have a couple of great dashboards, different data sets you can look at there, and you can send them over to your maths teachers. The OECD as well have a teenage readiness dashboard that has some great data sets that maths teachers might want to get stuck right into. And they're really great interactive websites, really easy for teachers to use and students to use. With science, it could be all of the above, but then also things like how can you bring local scientists into class? How can you connect your science department with what's going on in your local community, science initiatives that are going along in your local community? And how can you do things like provide bios of different scientists? We know that particularly within the senior curriculum, it can often be difficult to find examples of great scientists coming from a diverse range of people. So it might be that your senior science teachers aren't able to find bios for amazing female scientists or scientists who are living with a disability, for example, or scientists from countries in the global south. So if you can find those kinds of bios, if you can read those real life studies and you can forward them to your science teachers, that could be really helpful. Talking about the humanities, we've got all those reports again, all those data sets, but don't overlook things like policy documents. Your local council's probably releasing policy updates, strategy updates. All those kinds of things are great for handing over to your humanities teachers. Things like upcoming planning proposals or strategies to 2050. All those kinds of things are really exciting for humanities teachers. And then for your other subjects, think about how you can apply for them. So say technology, they might want to read all of the future of work reports. They might want to really know about the emerging roles that are coming out. Your arts department might want to hear about some reports from the creative industries or any kind of announcements that are coming out in those kinds of areas as well. So just think about what you can share and make it available. Now, it might be ideal if you could have some amazing dashboard where teachers can come in and find all these resources whenever they need them, but that's not necessarily practical. And then you've got to remind people as well to go and visit those kinds of things. Whereas you can always do these in, like, say, a regular email, could be fortnightly email that you send out to all of the teachers with just the collection of the latest resources that you've found, or even just present once a term with here's some great resources at the start of a staff meeting, whole school staff meeting, and just let them know that they can come to you if they would need any more resources or if they have any questions. So you can also really help by supplementing their speakers. Now, we know that guest speakers within a school are really, really valuable. I know for my own children, they're teenagers in secondary school at the minute, when they've had a guest speaker come in, those are those days where they come home and they want to talk about what's happened in class, what they've learned and what they're excited about. So you probably have access, like I said earlier, to better networks or to wider networks than your teachers. So don't hesitate to share those networks with the teachers. You could also suggest some local organisations who could provide connections, and then also get in there, and when your teachers are thinking about who to bring along, recommend the non-obvious jobs. So it's really easy when we often find teachers just think about, I'm doing science, so I'm going to look for a scientist. Why not also look for a science communicator? Or for, say, a lawyer who is working with a local science organisation. So just try and expand the thinking a little bit there as well. And then also, it can be really great if you can support staff professional development. Ongoing professional development is so important. Things are changing all the time. It's very difficult to keep up with all of these things by ourselves. So you can take on a little bit of that role in your school, providing local industry updates, providing professional development to help teachers feel more confident within career conversations, Even if it's just those simple things like emailing out resources or finding reports that your school leadership might be interested in, all of those kinds of things that you can do that can support professional development as well will help make sure that that careers within the curriculum program of yours is going to get put to best use. And then the final thing to really talk about is making it consistent. So careers in the curriculum isn't something that can happen 1 week a year or just occasionally. It needs to be something that happens consistently and regularly throughout the year. And it's totally okay to start really small, start with small steps, and to focus on what your school is already doing well and just amplify that. See how you can extend it, make it better, make it bigger next year. But those kinds of steps, they might seem like they take a long time, but when you do them consistently, that's what really builds that whole school careers mindset and makes it so much easier for you to work towards bigger initiatives down the track. I hope you found that session really helpful, and please reach out to me if you have any questions or other ideas. I'm always excited to hear them.